Here we go! Peachy!
Here I go!
What's going on? We're back for another edition of the Funtendo Game Show, where we give you game, we talk about life, and we talk about what really matters to you.
100%.
Let's jump right into the show. Today we're going to be covering the topic, bread and circus. And this has a historical relevance, more or less, because bread and circus is nothing new. It's been around for centuries, more or less. And let's get into the definition of what bread and circus is.
We're in the game.
Something as extravagant entertainment offered as an expedient means of pacifying discontent or diverting attention from a source of grievance. So this is the dictionary version of what bread and circus is. Let's jump into a more practical video. Shout out to Mike Chorus Circus for making this video. He's going to break it down for you.
100%.
Bread and circuses. What does this actually mean? I've seen this quote being used in a variety of contexts. Some people think of it as a positive slogan for the beauty of circus and the simple life, but its true meaning is actually a little more sinister. The quote comes from a Roman poet named Decimus Junius Juvenalius, or in English, Juvenal. Juvenal was born around 55 CE. At this time, Rome was reigned by the Emperor Nero and the Roman Empire was prospering. Born into a middle-class family, Juvenal found himself joining the army. However, after failing to get a promotion to officer, Juvenal became cynical. He started to complain and write about the court's bias in who gets promoted. This ultimately led to his banishment from Rome. He was driven away to Egypt, possibly, where he lived for many years. In 96 CE, the emperor who had been responsible for his banishment died, so Juvenal returned to Rome and began publishing his most famous work, Satires. The Satires were a collection of 16 satirical poems, divided into 5 books that were issued roughly around 100 to 130 CE. They could be seen as a brutal critique of pagan Rome, corruption, social deviancy, and the general brutalistic nature of mankind. They are the source of many well-known maxims: a sound mind in a sound body, who will guard the guards themselves, and of course, bread and circuses. The
I'm not
latter
mentioning
comes from
no names.
Satire X. Wrong desire is the source of suffering. So what does he really mean by this quote? The full poem talks about how easy it is to fall from power, referring to Sejanus, an extremely high-ranking individual, commander of the Praetorian Guard, advisor of the emperor, and at some point, practically emperor himself. However, before long, he was ultimately and suddenly executed for treason. He blames the mob of following Fortuna, the goddess of fortune and the personification of good luck. The full quote reads, "Long ago, the people cast off its worries. When we stopped selling our votes, a body that used to confer commands, legions, rods, and everything else has now narrowed its scope and is eager and anxious for 2 things only: bread and circuses." Democracy was very different at this time to what it is today. Around 100 years prior, Emperor Augustus claimed voting was wrecked by the Senate and solved the problem by abolishing voting altogether. The annona, or grain dole, had been an object of political contention for many years. Essentially, as a way to win votes, poor citizens were given free grain, which eventually turned into free bread. The circus at this time referred to the extremely costly spectacles, such as chariot races, gladiator fights, wild animal hunts, and the like. These events were the most likely places for a Roman to come into contact with the emperor, and became extremely important for morale, winning votes, and strengthening political grip. This is quite a poignant thing to think about and reflect upon as to how it applies in today's society. For example, over the period of the lockdown, there was quite a controversial decision at the time to keep football games going, despite much of the other entertainment and public services being restricted.
All right, so basically he broke down how bread and circuses were more or less things that were given to people to pacify them and distract them. So they were given a little bit of food because maybe they were poor and hungry, and then they were entertained to keep their minds off of things. Now, when these bread and circuses events were going on, the people that be, the powers that be, the emperors and other people were planning. They were planning wars. They were planning attacks. They were planning to undermine their citizens. They were doing their dirty work in the background, more or less.
100%.
The modern day bread and circus is going to include things like entertainment. Think sports, movies,
prescription drugs.
It could
love
be
that.
it could be YouTube, depending on what you're watching. It could be TikTok, Instagram, anything. Video games could possibly be bread and circus.
Come on, man.
Anything that is pacifying you and taking you away from where your attention should be.
Shut your mouth.
I personally believe that if you're not learning, then you're not growing.
I'm not mentioning
So
no names.
if you're not using the tools that you have, such as YouTube or Instagram or some of these other tools like social media, then you're probably just using them for entertainment, which becomes circus. Bread is the food stamps that they're giving us, the welfare.
I love it since age
you probably
5.
do have a lot of people that are receiving welfare, which would be considered the modern day bread. And then now circus is all of the social media, television, all of the content that really doesn't do anything for you
I don't care.
except distract you. Now, I'm not saying that sports is bad, movies are bad, entertainment's bad, social media is bad, anything like that. That's not what I'm saying, because all of those things do have a place in life.
What I'm trying to say is,
But when these tools are being used to pacify you and distract you, that's when they kind of become bread and circus.
100%.
I'm going to get into the aspect of how bread and circus is now what we would consider the modern day sports.
You've heard that before,
you can
right?
Compare the Roman Colosseum and these big Colosseums to our sports arenas now. You can compare Julius Caesar, who would be an emperor, to a modern day political figure or a modern day leader. And you can compare the bread to the actual food that we're being given to kind of pacify us. Because when people get hungry and people don't have enough to eat, people will eventually revolt. Jumping right into this article, study 1 in 4 in U.S. watch 5+ hours of sports weekly.
It's in my code.
A new nationwide study revealed that the average American spends 4 hours a week watching live sports, with 1 in 4 watching in excess of 5 hours. So Nielsen does specific surveys and ratings and basically broke down that 4 in 10 people admit to watching sports while working.
I hate this
That's
job.
crazy. 26% of men and 13% of women have used sports watching as an excuse to get out of something, and 65% would rather watch sports than the news, and 28% prefer sports over television programs. As for their favorite sports viewing location, 83% of respondents said they watch most games at home.
Not socially.
So I'm going to actually put a link to this article in the description here so you can check the article out. It was written in 2022, but I still think the information is very relevant to what's going on right now. We've got another article that basically talks about sports viewership statistics, and this is more recent. This is from 2024, or it was updated in 2024. 54.4 million viewers tuned in to watch the NFL draft in 2023. Nearly 160 million in the U.S. watched live sports once a month in 2023. U.S. women's soccer viewership will decrease by 10% in 2022. The world's game in 2022 peaked at over 5.1 concurrent viewers. 40% of people who watch esports tournaments are in China. So this article basically goes into the fact that there's tons and tons of people watching sports. I would kind of argue that sports kind of is almost like a cult. And I will admit, there have been times in my life where I've been very consumed by sports. I've had my favorite teams. I love the sports gear. I love the sportswear. So I'm probably part of the problem as well and have contributed a portion of my life to watching games. I do value sports as entertainment in a way to relax. However, I think when you watch every single game, every single team, every single league, it just becomes too time consuming, and I feel that it affects your productivity. Again, nothing wrong with having a favorite team, nothing wrong with watching a game, kicking back with your friends, family, having a beer, having a barbecue, if that's the form of entertainment that you prefer. However, don't let it turn into bread and circus where you're being distracted and you don't have the productivity that you need. You don't have the resources that you need. You don't have the money that you need because you're watching sports or even gambling on sports. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's talk about the money here. The sports industry makes billions, hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide. You've got pro baseball, pro basketball, pro football. You've got multiple pro football leagues.
100%.
You've got soccer. You've got rugby. You've got tennis. You've got so many professional sports that the industry and the amount of money that they make is just, it's crazy. But let's get into the major leagues in the United States and talk about how much they make.
Sports fans unite, because today we will talk about who will make the most money, the NBA, the NFL, or the MLB. Place your bets, because today we will talk about the most lucrative sports and teams for 2019. Let's face it, professional sports is a billion-dollar industry with sponsorship deals, stadium tickets, media partnerships, you name it. Each has their own fair share of money-making strategies. But there are also a lot of factors that would come into play, like if the team owns the arena, or how much the players earn each season. So, are you ready? Because we will give you a breakdown on the NBA, NFL, and the MLB, and which sport makes the most money and why. But before the big reveal, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so we can keep you updated on the latest financial tips and trends. Stay tuned, because the last one will blow your mind. National Basketball Association. According to Statista, all 30 teams in the NBA generated $8.76 billion in revenue for their 2018-2019 season. Now that's a lot. Plus, while some teams had it bad, like the New York Knicks, who had a tragic 17 wins for the last season,
100%.
it still didn't affect their franchise value. In fact, it's the first time that all NBA teams reached a $1.3 billion worth. Some even made more. According to a report from Forbes, each NBA team had increased their value by at least 6%, while others made a 20% jump. So, which teams made it on top? Well, surprise, surprise, because the Knicks had reached a value of $4.6 billion.
Wow.
Next is the Los Angeles Lakers with $4.4 billion, followed by the Golden State Warriors, $4.3 billion,
Here we go.
the Chicago Bulls with $3.2 billion, and the Boston Celtics with $3.1 million. Now, since the NBA is privately owned, they don't really have to publicly disclose their official earnings. Now, let's move on to the MLB. Major League Baseball. In a report from Forbes, the MLB made a record-breaking $10.7 billion in revenue. Now, that's a notch higher than what the NBA earned last season. It also signifies a huge increase from the $10.3 billion they made in 2018. So, where does the MLB make the most of their money? Well, thanks to the media rights deals, the league was able to make money out of its partnership with Fox, ESPN, and Turner Sports. In fact, Turner Sports just signed an extension worth $5.1 billion, which covers until the 2028 season. The league's commissioner, Rob Manfred, also confirmed that they are searching for media partners to add to their revenue.
Here we go.
So, which teams made the most money? On top of the list is the New York Yankees, with a value of $5 billion,
Gotta be the Yankees.
while the Dodgers and the Red Sox are tied at $3.4 billion. The Cubs also come into the top 5 with $3.2 billion, and the Giants with $3.1 billion. While most of the MLB franchises were able to rake in cash this season, 2 teams reported negative growth in their valuation, with the Pirates falling 1%, valued at $1.26 billion, and the Marlins, which had a 2% decline, dropping their value to $980 million.
You've
So
heard
we've
that
got
before,
the
right?
NBA and the MLB covered. Are you ready to hear the top money-making league? National Football League. We get it. No one can beat the NFL when it comes to bringing in cash. In fact, Darren Rovell declared that the league gave back $8.7 billion to the teams in revenue. But get this, owners get 52% of football-related income, while the players get about 48%. This means that the NFL made a total revenue of nearly $17 billion. The NFL had 50% of their entire revenue in TV deals. Others include ticket sales, merchandising, and licensing rights, as well as corporate sponsorships. So, which team had the most value? Well, the Dallas Cowboys still take the top spot with a value of $5.5 billion, and marking their 13th consecutive year as the most valuable team. This is followed by the New England Patriots with $4.1 billion, and the New York Giants with $3.9 billion.
Okay.
You also have the Los Angeles Rams, $3.8 billion, and finally the San Francisco 49ers with $3.5 billion. Players. While the NFL makes the most money when it comes to revenue, the fight isn't over yet. In fact, among the 3, NBA players make the most money. With headline-worthy deals, you can pretty much see the huge pay gap between NBA and NFL players. According to CNBC, the main reasons for the pay gap are league structure, salary caps, and rules around guaranteed money for players. Plus, while the NFL makes the most money in the United States, NBA players have a bigger fan base outside of the US, which gives them the best endorsement deals as compared to the other 2 leagues.
All right, let's talk about what we heard and how it relates to bread and circus. So you can see that these leagues are making billions and billions of dollars per year, and these franchises are worth billions. Well, where do they get the money from? They get the money from us and the people that are buying the tickets, going and buying the hot dogs, buying the jerseys, the shirts, buying shirts like this Miami Marlins shirt.
100%.
We, the fans, have made these leagues what they are in terms of the sheer size. And it just seems to only keep going up. So how does that relate back to bread and circus?
I hate to break it to you guys.
If you've got season ticket package and you're going to every game, if you've got a subscription to, NFL on Hulu or NFL subscription,
Throw 'em over the
NBA
side.
League Pass. There's so many ways to access sports now. And we're not just talking professional sports. This also includes college sports as well. So I just want to be fair. I'm not picking on professional sports. This goes for all sports and all entertainment. So these owners of these companies are making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue every single year. But some people can't even afford to eat every day. Some people that watch sports or go to these games or even gambling on games, they can't even maintain their bills. So at that particular point, I think that sports becomes bread and circus. You're being pacified and you're being taken away from what you should be doing. Maybe instead of watching sports, then you could be doing something a little bit more productive.
When people don't like me, it's because I said the truth.
What sport is this? I think it's water polo. Y'all both don't know shit. It's soccer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Bro, I told you stop bringing that, bro. Real, bro. I told you stop bringing that, bro. Let's go. Oh my God. Oh. Supposed to be bros night.
The Raiders go crazy.
Is that Brittany Grinder?
It's Anthony Davis.
Hi, I thought Tony Hawk retired from the cross. Now he out here shooting.
Where y'all going? Why y'all coming?
What happened, babe? I thought it was cold.
Next time, just go drink bottomless mimosas with your friends.
Let's check in with this lady and see what she has to say.
Do you know how many hours of sports you watched this year? Well, after a conversation earlier this year, I started tracking all of the hours I watched sports this year, so this is my sports wrapped. The total time I watched sports this year was 268 hours and 14 minutes. Depending on your circumstances, this may seem like a lot, it may seem like a little, but for me, it seems like quite a lot since I went back to work in an office this year. Also, to be fully transparent, I don't think the numbers are completely accurate. I definitely fell off on some of the tracking, but I did my best. Now let's break down that 268 hours.
I love that.
First, I had to only break this down into 5 sections because I was using a free app. I did not want to pay for an app. So they were Premier League, F1, other soccer, other sports, and international soccer. Or football, however you want to say it. The Premier League and WSL accounted for 48% of my watching, which was 128 hours and 40 minutes. For F1, it was 25% of my watching, which was 67 hours and 20 minutes. I think I watched every single race except for Hungary because I was on a plane, and I caught as many practice sessions as I could. Other soccer, so other leagues, accounted for 19%, which was 52 hours. Other sports accounted for 5%, which was 14 hours and 15 minutes, and this consisted of baseball, basketball, hockey, etc. This is where I think I may have screwed up. It says that I only watched 6 hours of international soccer, which doesn't seem right, but I don't know. Now that I'm thinking back, I'm not sure if I put IndyCar or any other motorsport watching in F1 or if I put it in other sports. So wow. Take that with a grain of salt. Last year, I assumed that I watched 360 plus-ish hours of sports, but that was also accounting for the fact that I worked from home where I could watch sports while I was working. That I couldn't do this year because I got a job in an office, but I think my sports consumption is pretty good. I thought it was pretty cool to break down the metrics of how I'm enjoying and consuming sports, and I'm thinking I might potentially download the paid version of this app so I can kind of break it down better next year and kind of there's options for making notes so I can say which sports I watch because clearly you can only get so many details from this. But yeah, I watched my last hour and a half of sports today, so that's it for the year. Anyways, I'm wishing you all a very...
Shout out to the woman that gave us her sports watching numbers. So she said she watches about 268 hours for the year. Now, if you take that and divide it by 40, what you have is 6.75 weeks that she just watched sports. So think about it. If you don't have the resources you need, instead of watching sports, you could have been working at a job. So if you take 270 hours roughly and multiply that times, even if you were making $12.50 an hour, that would be an extra $3,375. I mean, obviously you got to pay taxes, but still, that might be the difference in you actually having some money in your pocket at the end of the year, having $2,000 versus not having $0 in your
100%.
pocket. So once again, sports can be bread and circus. This woman here she's probably well off enough where it's not affecting her. It sounded like she was working from home, able to catch some of the games. Shout out to you, girl. Double dipping over here watching games while you're supposed to be at work.
I'm not mentioning no names.
Let's jump into the next article here or the next video.
Here and what day it is, but if it's a Sunday during football season, it's 7 hours of commercial-free football.
Okay, so she watches 7 hours of commercial-free football. If you take the 7 hours of commercial-free football and multiply that times an 18-week season, how many hours of football is that? And it's really more than that, because you're going to watch the playoffs, and that's going to be another, we'll just say an average of 4 hours per day, because there's not as many games. Maybe there's 5 weeks of that, 20 more hours. But if she's watching 7 hours of football times 18, that's 126, plus another 20 hours. Plus you're going to watch the Super Bowl. That's going to be like 4 hours. That's 150 hours right there of just watching sports on Sunday. Again, if you would have took that and got a part-time job doing something else, which, you know, she's obviously not hurting for it because she's a sports analyst and this is what she does for a living. But I suspect that she would be watching this much football even if she did not work in sports.
100%.
Shawty's like a melody in my head that I can't keep out. Got me singing like na 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 na. She's running through my mind all day. Hey, Shawty's like a melody in my head that I can't keep out. Got me singing like na 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 na.
The bottom, Paige. You were good. I'm waiting for you to be great. And next, Kendall. You didn't stick out to me. Next is Brooke. Next, Nia. You're third on the pyramid. You were third overall high score. And Mackenzie. And on top of the pyramid, going 3 for 3, once again, is Maddie.
I'm a Luigi.
The bottom,
number 1.
Have a moment of honesty here. The 3 best sports to watch, and yes, this is my opinion, but my opinion's always right, so don't come at me with no baseball bullshit.
Shut your mouth.
1, hockey. It's fast-paced.
Mamma mia.
The fighting on the ice. It is entertainment in its purest form. If you go to games, I think personally the hockey arena is the perfect temperature for when you drink a beer or two, you know, and you get that alcohol blanket going. It's perfect temp. Number 2, F1. Well, honestly, in my opinion, hockey and F1 are tied, but F1, not NASCAR, Formula 1. There is nothing as simultaneously amazing as watching a Grand Prix, but then at said Grand Prix, having to hear, I'm sorry, Charles, books. No!
I don't care.
And number 3 is basketball. Key here is fast-paced. Basketball is fast-paced. It's entertaining. March Madness. I'm specifically a little bitch for March Madness.
100%.
I love March Madness. Honorable mentions are college football. College, not NFL. College ball. Boxing, and because my boyfriend will kill me if I don't add this to the list, Premier League soccer.
Shut your mouth.
More than 2.8 billion minutes of live baseball watched in that app in 1 year.
Have some fun on America's Game of the Week on a cold day at Lambeau Field.
I'd love that.
For the Los Angeles Rams. And well, we're going to have some fun on America's Game of the Week on a cold day at Lambeau Field. We get ready for the Los Angeles Rams and the...
I know. And I was like, I'm not about to fight with you over some guests. So I told Stephanie, I was like, maybe you should take care of them. And she was like, they're not in my section. And I was like, what do you mean they're not in your section? That's where your section starts.
What?
I know. And I was like, I'm not about to fight with you over some guests. So I told Stephanie, I was like, maybe you should take care of them.
You've heard that
She was
before,
like,
right?
They're not in my section. I was like, what do you mean they're not in your section?
That's peachy. There's truly no better feeling than watching a NOLA team win, and tonight we're celebrating a Pels win. I can't even express the joy I get from being back in New Orleans. Luckily, I got to watch my mom perform. We spent the rest of the game together, picked up some burgers, and then listened to Wipe Me Down because we won this one.
Last night I dreamed I was a bottle of ketchup.
Mamma mia!
Which is weird, because usually your mayonnaise in my dreams.
Watching sports is probably one of the biggest time sucks, waste of time that kills your productivity as a man. That is socially acceptable.
You've heard that
and it's a
before,
ninja
right?
because it's so cool. It's social. You could go to a game, you could drink, hang out with the boys. I look at that like that's crazy. I'm not going to watch other guys go ahead and achieve their dreams while
I'm
I'm
not
sitting here
mentioning no
living my
names.
regular 5. Like, fuck. If you stop watching sports, you're going to realize how much more time you have. Watching sports is probably one of the biggest.
100%. 100%. 100%.
I would definitely agree with that. As previously mentioned, used to be huge into sports, used to watch sports all the time. But what I started to see was that it was sucking so much of my time away. And have I spent thousands on tickets to go to games? Absolutely. Do I enjoy going to a game every now and then? Absolutely. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. However, when you're doing it all the time and it's affecting your productivity, it might even be affecting your relationship. There's a lot of people that are so into sports that they're not giving their partner the attention that they might want or need.
You've heard that before, right?
It's out there. So going back to the theme of the show, bread and circus, the people that you're seeing are illustrating to you how they feel that sports is all consuming and it's a kind of a waste of time. Do you want to be great and chase greatness? Or do you want to watch other people be great and watch other people chase greatness? It's got to be one or the other. Either you're going to be spending your time trying to excel and be at the top of your game and be the best version of yourself that you can be, or you're going to spend all of your free time watching LeBron run up and down the basketball court and dunking a basketball. What do you want to do? Do you want to be great and chase greatness, or do you want to watch other people chase greatness? To his point, I don't think that LeBron is watching all these basketball games. How can he be? He's too busy playing games, training, making commercials, doing endorsements, trying to start other side businesses, managing other businesses, spending time with his family, trying to get Bronny to the NBA. He ain't got time to be watching all these games. So let's be real about it. Either you're going to chase greatness to be great, or you're going to watch other people. Let's jump into this next video. It talks about sports betting. Is the sports betting industry a huge mistake?
Sportsbook. FanDuel Casino. FanDuel. Free chicken dinners with FanDuel Casino.
Hitting you with
By
the
gambling
bread.
at
BetMGM Sportsbook.
BetMGM.
BetMGM.
What do you want from your sportsbook? Please help me.
Helmet catch. Stop guessing the helmet catch. Is it the Caesars Sportsbook app with Caesars rewards where the more you play, the more stuff you earn, and they have fast payouts because Caesar is the man?
Yes! My God, they even got the Tennessee Kardashians. Sports betting has become increasingly normalized in America over the last 6 years. But critics wonder if beneath the legal gambling industry's rise looms a public health crisis of unknown proportions. So is regulated gambling a healthy future for sports entertainment? Or have we opened a Pandora's sportsbook, putting millions of people at risk of addiction? Let's fucking find out. Today, online sports betting is legal in 29 states and the freely associated island nation of Washington, D.C., with more states on the way. And with how quickly sports betting has become ubiquitous in American culture, it's easy to forget that gambling can actually kind of be bad for you.
We've now been able to show over the last 25, 30 years that when people who gamble, the same parts of the brain are being activated as if I were taking alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, or cannabis.
Dr. Tim Fung is the co-director of the UCLA Gambling Studies Program and a clinical professor of psychiatry.
It impacts sleep, it impacts mood, it impacts finances, it impacts relationships. And when you have a product that's being given out and regulated by the government, It's got to be regulated and it's got to be understood.
In 2013, the American Psychological Association officially classified gambling as an addiction. Meanwhile, since its 2018 legalization, sports betting has generated a gangbusters amount of economic activity in the U.S. $220 billion in bets were placed in just the first 5 years it was legal. There are now over 16 million average monthly users of the most popular sports betting apps. And next year, online sports betting revenue is expected to approach $12 billion. But to understand this growth trajectory, we gotta talk about something called daily fantasy sports. Daily fantasy is an online version of fantasy sports, and according to my wife, a terrible reason to have my phone out during our kid's baptism. Fantasy is when you pick a bunch of real players, assemble a fake team out of them, and keep track of their stats. But around 2010, a new turbocharged version of fantasy came onto the scene, where you could set new lineups as often as every day, play in apps on your phone, and crucially, put money down on the results.
So you had two competitors that really arose to the top of the market here, DraftKings and FanDuel.
Kenneth Vogel is a New York Times investigative reporter who is part of a team that wrote a series of major stories about the betting industry's rise in America.
And they made a business out of fantasy sports and allowed players to not wager, but put money on the performance of their teams. They would push back against the use of the term wager there.
Even though gambling on sports was still broadly illegal, Congress had previously determined that fantasy sports were actually a game of skill, not luck, meaning that putting money on the results wasn't gambling. Which reminds me a lot of an argument my high school friend Chaz used to make about the pull-out method.
So you get the point. Basically what's going on is fantasy sports is a form of gambling, and now that sports gambling is legalized in all of these states, it's having a tremendous impact on mental health, financial health, relationships, your physical health. 100%. There's a lot of people that are gambling their entire paycheck on these games. The one thing that I know is that broke people shouldn't gamble, but the people with the least amount of money are the people that are out there gambling the most of money because they think they're going to hit. You see these people sports betting online or at a casino, and they're trying to hit a $4 18-way parlay to hit for $1.6 million. Now, if you were able to hit that, congratulations to you. I do believe that there is skill involved, and I will say that you probably would have a better chance at sports betting than you would at the blackjack table, or you would on roulette or at a slot machine. That's the one thing that I will say about sports betting is if you watch these games and you watch these leagues, you can become familiar with the players, the coaches, the tendencies. You can look at the stats. You can understand the history. You can understand the storyline of that particular game, and you have a pretty good chance of winning if you put the time in. But once again, you got to put the time in. So if you're not a part of the circus, then, and you think you're going to just show up and get some free bread, probably not going to happen. Let's check in with this caller that says sports betting is his side hustle. Shout out to Dave Ramsey.
Today's question comes from Jason in Illinois. Jason writes, my question is about income from a side hustle. I recently began sports betting and have built up a bankroll of about $4,000. So his side hustle is gambling. My wife and I have about $55,000 in total debt, excluding the house. We earn about $61,000 a year. I'm a saver, said the gambler. My wife is a spender.
It seems like you have a little problem understanding the English language.
I have agreed to withdraw. This is my favorite sentence I've ever read on the show. I have agreed to withdraw $250 a month from my sports betting account to help cover our shortage, but my wife would prefer I liquidate the account. Dave, what should I do? Oh, man, this is a real person. Oh, man.
There's a human out there that really asked that.
Here we go.
If we don't say something stupid, we're going to be employed forever. Forever.
Oh, man.
All right. So Jason, you're not a
Jason, you're not from the South. Or around the South, we would say,
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty.
Number one, gambling is not a side hustle.
I hate to break it to you guys.
because you're not that good, you prideful, arrogant little jerk.
It's an addiction. It's an addiction. Number two, you're not a saver. You're a gambler.
What I'm trying to say is like,
Roll over the side.
Like this guy sounds like he thinks he's not playing.
Shut your mouth.
He thinks he's so good at it that it's a guaranteed income.
Shut
That's what
your
I meant
mouth.
by you arrogant, prideful little jerk. That's what I was saying. There's an arrogance that goes with this type of addiction that he thinks he's the exception to the rule, and he thinks that MGM Grand was built by Santa Claus
You've
instead
heard
of
that
by
before,
bettors
right?
who lost their butts to Caesar.
you've heard that before, right?
In his palace. Yes. So liquidate this immediately, all 4,000. Put all $4,000. Close all of your sports betting.
You guys don't understand. You guys don't
Send your wife
understand
out for
that I
a
did the
cheat
Yeezys.
meal and say you are sorry and that you have lied to her and you've been dishonest. And you're gonna go get help, and then go get a second job that you work for and that pays you every time.
And you earn money and stuff.
And never say you have a $250 a month
Second
side.
job.
Never
No. He has $4,000 that's his money
that he earned,
and
in his
he
side
was going to bless his little wife by allowing her to use $250 of his $4,000 because he's that kind
from
of
his
guy.
business account.
He's a sweet guy that way.
Bingo.
No more separate account.
Now, you hear all the sarcasm, folks. I just want to make sure you heard sarcasm in there because that's it's important that you heard that. You arrogant little self-centered, unbelievable. You need help, son.
Just don't say it because you're going to get canceled.
No, I'm not going to get canceled. I own the show. How can I cancel me?
That'd be nice of you. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, man, you're not. I don't know how to say this. You're not well. A buddy of mine who's a pastor here in town walked me through the increase in sports betting.
Oh yeah.
In Tennessee.
Yeah. No.
And
Period.
It's astounding.
Period. No, the number one fastest growing addiction in America, online porn. Number two, online gambling, and most of it is sports.
But I didn't see the money. I could not.
We have a cool dude named Caesar doing commercials. Give me a break here.
Unbelievable the amount of money being spent
not
on sports betting.
funny. I have talked to 25 people in the past handful of months that have lost their families, their businesses, their jobs. Their life is done, and it's all because he thought he was cute betting football. And it starts there. It's just, I'm sorry, you're not cute, dude. Yeah. And you're not cute looking at porn either. It's not funny. It's not funny. You're a wuss. And you need help. And you are messed up. Okay. This is, and you just read your own email, how messed up you are. You have $4,000 and your wife, who is the only person on the planet who actually thinks you're cool, wants some money.
Mamma mia.
And you are going to give her $250 of your $4,000. I want to choke you. Your job is to serve your family, not your sports betting addiction. So, there's no data that says that people who sports bet end up wealthy.
So you heard what Dave Ramsey said. Dave just basically broke down the same things that some of the other people have been saying. You're spending your time doing something that's an addiction, and it's actually sucking your money. It could be destroying your relationship. It could be destroying your family, your mental health, your physical health, and at the same time draining your resources. So when he said this guy is not well, I think what he meant was that mentally this guy is not well, because you think that, first of all, you're good at sports betting, which I know a lot of people who do think they're good at sports betting. I used to do sports betting and I did think I was good. I do think that I was better than average based on the amount of wins that I had versus the amount of losses that I had. But all in all, I lost way more money than I ever made. So I would have to classify myself as a loser. Again, I do know other people that think that they are so good at sports betting. They're completely arrogant, but they're completely broke. They have nothing to show. Absolutely nothing to show for all of the tens of thousands of dollars that they've spent in sports betting. And on top of that, You can't tell them the truth. You try to tell them, hey, man, maybe you should stop sports betting. Man, maybe you should take that money and save it. Maybe you should try to get a different side hustle. Do something legitimate. Maybe you could actually get a girlfriend if you didn't gamble all your money away.
100%.
They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that game. They don't want to hear that from Funtendo game coach.
I'm a
here.
pimp.
So I stopped telling it. But for those who want to know, if you're gambling all your money away on a weekly basis, you're living at home with your parents, or you're in a relationship and your relationship's going bad and you're sports betting every week, maybe it's time to give up sports betting.
Know your role
Maybe it's
and
time
shut
to
your
drop
mouth
that bad
because the
habit,
people's
because
champ is ready to talk.
from a psychological perspective, as it becomes an addiction, it erodes your ability to make good decisions. Just like any gambling. So I'm not going to call out sports betting specifically. Gambling in general does the same thing. It's eroding your ability to think over time. You win a couple big ones, then you lose. Then you think, oh, I got to double my money. I got to get my money back. So then you want to double up, and then you end up losing it all.
Mamma mia!
That's just how it works. These casinos and big businesses are built off of losers. If you ever watch the movie Casino with Al Pacino, that's what they tell you. These casinos are built off of the backs of losers. These sports betting places are built off of the backs of losers. A very rare number of people are actually winners. And the majority of people that are actually winners have inside information. It's just like the stock exchange. If you don't have inside information, you don't know coaches, players, referees.
Shut your mouth.
You don't have an advantage like you think you do. So it might be time to hang up your sports betting cleats and get out of the game.
Because see, The Rock has already answered this time and time again.
In May of 2023, Ivan Toney, an English soccer player who plays for Brentford Football Club in the English Premier League, was banned from soccer for 8 months and fined $62,500 after being found guilty of 232 breaches of the Football Association's betting rules. It's easy to write off his story as an individual failure on Ivan Toney's part, and while he is undoubtedly at fault and has been rightfully punished, the situation highlights a more significant problem with sports betting as a whole and how it's destroying young men. In 2012, American rapper 50 Cent bet $500,000 that the New York Giants would win the National Football Conference title. They did, and he won over $1 million. Not only did that bet elevate him in the eyes of the gambling elite, but it created a dream for young men everywhere. The dream of the winning bet. Today, that dream has been democratized through a seemingly endless stream of sports betting apps. The companies will sell you on the idea that, just like 50 Cent, you too can become a millionaire by placing the right bet on the game you love. Unfortunately, this easy access to gambling has opened the floodgates to a new public health and addiction crisis around the globe. And with major industries behind it, it's hard to imagine this epidemic ending anytime soon. One of these industries is the American National Football League, the NFL. In 2012, the same year that 50 Cent won his big bet, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said that gambling was a threat to the league.
Donald Trump was obsessed with revenge. I'm focused on the future. I'm lowering drug prices, getting more people health care.
I gotta pop this in
defending our
on my
basic
video,
rights
man.
like the right to choose.
Trying to do my
pushing
thing
past
over
Trump's
here, and this
grievances
chunk's
and building
gonna
a
come
better
in on my
future.
video. Man, get up out of here.
And just over a decade since he made that statement, the 2023 Super Bowl was riddled with ads from major sportsbook companies like FanDuel and DraftKings.
Peachy.
Did Goodell genuinely have a change of heart about betting, or were there just too many under-the-desk handshakes for him to keep his stance? We may never know for sure, but what's clear for all to see, though, is that all the major sports leagues and the networks that license them now work together with casinos and gambling apps through multi-million-dollar partnerships. Announcers identify moments to place a bet as they're calling the game, and pre-game TV segments are devoted to analyzing betting odds. And it's not just in the US.
So they just pointed out something that has drastically changed. Before sports betting and gambling was such a big part of the game, they weren't previewing the odds. Now, before the game starts, everybody makes their pick But then even some of the analysts are sponsoring or paid to sponsor these specific sports leagues. So I'm going to give a good example of one that I know. Charles Barkley, the former NBA player and NBA Hall of Famer. Shout out to Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley goes and he gambles. You know, it's no mistake. Some other major players have gambled as well. Michael Jordan. But let me just tell you this Charles Barkley story. So I heard from some people at a sports book that Charles Barkley frequents that Charles Barkley's came in and made big bets. Now, when Charles comes in, he's got a lot of money to bet. So he might be betting $100,000. So when he goes in to bet his $100,000, everyone's like, oh, Charles is here. Oh, I'm putting my money where Charles is putting his money, thinking that Charles actually is going to win. Well, Charles already has money, so it doesn't matter if Charles bets $100,000 or not. It doesn't matter. He can lose $100,000. Everyone else is upping their bet, and they're putting their money where Charles's money is. At the end of that game, they lost. Charles lost his 100, but everybody else lost their hundreds or thousands of dollars. Now, if you go behind the scenes, Charles Barkley works for FanDuel. He endorses FanDuel and does commercials. That's a total conflict of interest. He's coming in and betting at a FanDuel sportsbook, making an appearance, a promotional appearance, sits down, watches the game, and they get sucked. Everybody gets sucked. So, is it a coincidence or not? But that's just one example of a conflict of interest. So when you see these sports players on TV giving their picks out, you can't always believe what they have to say. There's one particular very known sports personality, former football player. I'm not going to mention his name. If you're into sports or you've watched over the years, you could probably figure it out. Every time he gives a pick, it almost loses. So I kind of figured out a lot of this stuff might possibly be rigged. And some of these analysts are trying to force you over to one side to get money on that side so they can win. At the end of the day, it's a cat and mouse game, and they walk away with a paycheck. So they're telling you to bet on a specific team knowing they're going to lose, and then the sports books rakes in all the money, and then that person gets a check. So it's a win-win-win for everybody except you. You end up being the loser. Let's jump into this next video and see what this gentleman's perspective is on the truth about watching sports. So basically what this guy is saying is that it started having a toll on his mental and his emotional health, which we highlighted earlier, and some of the other people that made videos also highlighted those same effects that sports betting and watching, well, he didn't say sports betting, just watching sports was having on him. Watching sports can be just as addictive as gambling or even doing drugs or anything, I guess, from that perspective. Now, I never got to the point where I was a fan and my team losing ruined my day, because at the end of the day, I knew it was a game. There have been times where I bet a lot of money on a game and I lost, but I've never really been kind of down like that. You know, I only bet what I knew I could just afford to lose, and it wasn't going to affect the rest of my life. So I don't know if other people do that, but they should actually be doing that.
100%.
That's going to wrap up this episode of the Funtendo Game Show, where we give you game. We talk about life. We talk about everything that matters.
100%.
We know you ain't got no will. What? You ain't got no bottle. Say what you tell. Let's just be honest. Say what you tell. Let's just be real. Say one time. You ain't got no cash. Hey. You ain't got no.
See you next time.